focus to a crucial topic that is shaping global economies and business strategies: sustainability and economic imperative. Sustainability, as we have seen today, is no longer a choice, but it is a necessity for long-term economic growth. Be it businesses or policymakers or investors worldwide, they are all embedding sustainable practices into their framework, not just as a responsibility, but as a strategy for resilience and profitability. In the session that's forthcoming, ladies and gentlemen, we will explore how sustainability is driving economic transformation, influencing regulations, and redefining corporate success. Please join me as I welcome onto the stage a formidable lineup of speakers to take the session forward, starting with the moderator of this panel, Shri Shailesh, Haribhakti, a green evangelist, a seasoned chartered and cost accountant with a strong focus on sustainable development, serving as a chairman of CSR, ESG sustainability committees, several boards. His leadership and commitment to shared value creation has earned him recognition, including the Vivekananda Sustainability Award 2022. We can have a better round of applause to welcome him, ladies and gentlemen. We're very glad to have amongst us and to be joining on this panel Shri Rajeev, Ranjan, an IAS officer of the 1985 batch. He's handled several important announcements in his 36-year-long service and has the unique distinction of occupying the highest levels in government, both at center and state level. He's also served as Special Secretary in the GST Council Secretariat and is presently doing a basket of ESG works. A very warm welcome to you, sir. We're very glad to have amongst us Dr. Rupa, Rege, Nitsure, former Group Chief Economist, L&T Finance and Bank of Baroda. She's an experienced chief economist with a demonstrated history of working in the BFSI industry. She's a strong business development professional, skilled in macroeconomics, risk management, financial analysis, and treasury management. We're also being joined by Mr. Prakhar Gupta, an eminent chartered accountant who is presently the head of ESG advisory practice at Incorp Global, a senior sustainability professional with 13 years of experience in defining and implementing ESG strategies. Thank you so much for joining us. And finally, please put your hands together as I request Mr. Rishabh Sawansukha, Managing Partner of HRIOL, to please join us on stage and be part of the panel. Mr. Rishabh, can we have you here back, please?
Let's jump straight into what we need to discuss and talk about and debate. Well, let me begin by calling each one of you thinkers, builders, and change makers, because that description is what it will take for us to bring value to each one of us and to the organizations that we serve or belong to through this session. So, we stand today at the confluence of history and destiny. It's a moment when economic progress and planetary well-being must fuse into one indivisible force, a force that does not merely mitigate damage, but actively regenerates and replenishes. For too long, the world has labored under the illusion that growth and sustainability are trade-offs. I want to say today very emphatically that this paradigm is broken and its replacement is already here, and it is reflected in the title of our session, that sustainability is an economic imperative. The incremental cost of renewable power, for example, from any source is now lower than fossil fuel cost. Renewable is economically far superior. This is the defining moment for our energy transition. Although let me tell you the truth of the matter, that despite all the efforts of everybody around the world, our percentage of renewables in our total energy mix has still to cross 25%. Although sunlight does not send an invoice, wind does not demand an extractive royalty, and neither does the tide burden us with rising debt. Despite all of this, we still need to push much harder because the economic logic is irrefutable. With AI-powered grid optimization, which has been one of the biggest issues in actually capturing all of the renewable power that we produce, we will be in a position to make this tipping point where once the tipping point happens, then there is no stopping the economic imperative. That is the nature of all human processes. We need to touch that tipping point. That's what will happen. My belief is that our mandate is clear. We need to move to renewables. Let's take circularity. Waste is not an externality. It is an asset, provided we have the intelligence to close the loop. It's not a regulatory burden. It's not an ESG tick mark. Waste is a huge, powerful, unexploited asset. The entire era of landfills is over. Zero waste ecosystems are the only way forward. It's not zero to landfill, it is zero landfills. Materials must be infinitely repurposed, infinitely, from industrial loops to urban metabolism. CDW will be the new building material of 2035. You'll not need to make any new cement. Product must be born circular, designed for disassembly, reuse, and regeneration. Biodiversity. It's the most undervalued asset class of the future. The universe operates as an intricate web of interdependence. Every particle, every species, every ecosystem is actually entangled in ways we are only beginning to comprehend. Destroy a rainforest and you disrupt global weather patterns, as we have seen. Wipe out a species and you cripple entire agricultural economies. Pollute the ocean and you collapse entire supply chains. Therefore, I say biodiversity is the most undervalued asset, and it is the asset that we need to nurture and protect, and make sure that it becomes even more diverse. Life must find itself. Carbon has to be switched from a liability to the fuel of the future. And how do we do this? It must become a source of energy, and a clean one at that. Imagine what would happen if we were to do interstellar travel and we need to reach another solar system. The only way we can come back is if we can generate that energy from the carbon in that solar system. There's no other way to do it. No rocket and no vehicle will have the fuel capacity to make the return journey happen. So we need to get into carbon capture, direct air capture, biochar, synthetic fuels, circular hydrogen, which must all replace our archaic mining processes. If we get this right, we will not merely decarbonize, we will re-industrialize, because there will be abundance of fuel and it will be available to us at a cost that all of us can afford. What I would like to see and talk about in this session is a world where every being flourishes, because every being has a right to exist and flourish. The call to action is to lead now. We are not here to theorize, we are here to execute. India, with its AI-powered foresight, as Rishabh mentioned a little while earlier, its digital infrastructure, and its deep spiritual wisdom, has the opportunity to not just adapt, but to set the global standard. We will make fossil fuels obsolete. We will monetize waste. We will transform carbon from curse to resource. And we will build an economy where wealth is measured not in depletion, but in regeneration. This is our strategic imperative. The time to do that is now. Ladies and gentlemen, let us be part of the leadership to the future. And I have such an extraordinary panel to extract nuggets of practical implementation. Let me begin with Rupa, who will talk to us about why all finance will have to be green in the next 5 or 7 years. Rupa, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Many thanks to Tax India Online for giving me this opportunity to participate in this prestigious event. I'm honored to be in such august company. I'm especially privileged because I'm sitting here in the presence of Mr. Haribhakti, who was the former chairperson of L&T Finance and the major driving force behind the ESG initiatives in L&T Finance Group. So without much ado, let me turn to the topic of sustainability. Haribhakti sir explained it very well, and to cut the long story short, sustainability means nothing but responsible use of natural resources to preserve planet's ecosystem and biodiversity. Because this alone will lay the foundation for economic as well as social well-being of the present generation and the future generation. So there is this, dimension of long-term in sustainability. In my talk, I would primarily focus on green financing as one of the effective tools, the tried and trusted tools, through which balance can be achieved between economic interest and environmental protection. Unfortunately, since the beginning of the year 2025, the news for climate action and sustainable development goals is not very encouraging. Right from the US to the European Union to China, skepticism has developed about climate action, and it has taken hold of policymakers. I think from an Indian perspective, this is not good news at all, because India is more exposed to the global warming phenomenon. We see that, we are facing unpredictable agriculture, drying water resources, natural disasters, heat stresses, increased frequency of extreme weather events. 10 years ago or 15 years ago, India used to witness cyclones, major cyclones once in 8 years. Now, even during the course of 1 year, we face 8 to 9 cyclones. We have moved from that situation to this. We are heavily dependent on monsoon rain for our food security, affordability. Our per capita income levels are quite low to adapt to any change in the climate action. So we are, we have to take this sustainability challenge in our own interest. And, we are the world's most populous country today, and our carbon intensity affects global emissions. So we are the third largest emitter after China and the US. If you see the latest currency and finance report of Reserve Bank of India, it shows it actually has identified climate change as a major concern to India's financial stability, stating that extreme weather events can affect the country's GDP by 2 to 6% every year up to 2030. Hence, in our own interest, we need to take up sustainability goals more seriously. Green finance is nothing but the monetary assistance provided for the projects that deal with environment protection, mitigating the effects of climate change, investing in renewable sources of energy, increasing the green cover, and all other projects that lead to sustainable development. So areas covered under green finance are many. First, of course, the green banking, which includes online banking, whereby, we carry out most of the banking transactions online, saving on paper, saving on branch visits, the number of the requirement of the number of physical branches of the bank has come down. That is one thing. There could be green mortgages, the loans which are given for housing, where they install energy efficient systems, green loans for the similar this thing, green credit cards, where, biodegradable materials could be used to make credit cards, plus, against every repayment, there could be a donation or a loan given for some green project. Green saving accounts, alternative fuel vehicle loans, the whole electric, thrust to electric vehicles, a green deposit scheme introduced by Reserve Bank of India. So plethora of such products can be easily implemented in India, and it's happening also, though we are in the early stages of it. Secondly, of course, the green bonds from the bond market or capital market side. These are debt instruments that raise capital to finance environmental or climate-related projects. And this could be issued either by the government or private corporations or international development banks. And third is green insurance, which is a type of insurance that encourages environmentally responsible behavior. For example, policyholders who install solar panels or use energy-efficient appliances or implement water conservation techniques, they may receive lower premiums or discounts. The Indian government, as you know, issued its first green sovereign bond in 2023 and generated $1 billion at a much reduced cost of capital compared to the conventional financing. RBI also has undertaken successful implementation of new standards for climate stress testing for banks' balance sheet management, climate transparency, and what I mentioned, the green deposits at banks. SEBI, the capital market regulator, has been chasing green bonds and corporate transparency for quite some time. It has even modified its methodology and produced new guidelines. For instance, ocean-related protection, it has come out with blue bonds, and for solar, yellow bonds, etc., as well as many do's and don'ts to combat greenwashing. Greenwashing means where, the environmental thrust of the project is not very clear. There is a lot of opacity around that. So incorporate, but this is not as easy as it sounds. Incorporating sustainability into finance is not easy. And financial institutions or lenders alone cannot manage this challenge. Cross-sectoral cooperation is critical for incorporating green financing into India's overall economic development strategy. The success of green financing relies on the active engagement of sectors like energy, agriculture, manufacturing, which account for majority of India's carbon emissions. So they have to work in tandem with lending institutions to achieve the goals. As per the CRISIL estimates, India will see a 5-fold growth in green investments to rupees 31 trillion between 2025 and 2030. And this will be a part of the $10 trillion investment needed through 2070. That is the year for net zero emission standard under the Paris Agreement. So accelerating grants and incentives, scaling up blended financial initiatives with multilateral organizations, policy support and flexibility to drive initiatives for carbon market development and industrial decarbonization, they are imperatives in the road ahead. So we require actually in India a collaborative approach involving the government, private sector, funding institutions, industry associations, and developmental agencies, all these entities have to come together, and their presence, their coordinated efforts will be critical to transform decarbonization from a challenge into a cornerstone of the country's growth strategy, as described by Mr. Haribhakti. International cooperation will also yield benefits, partnerships for technology transfer, concessional financing, and expertise exchange through platforms such as the International Solar Alliances, etc. So just to cut the long story short, we are in the early stages where, there is a lot of requirement of standardization, transparency, clarity about what is really a green project and what is not. But the beginning has been made, and looking at what's happening in other parts of the world, that should not in any way discourage us to carry out our efforts in full vigor. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Rupa. It's small wonder that before every board meeting started, we always had a update on the economic situation from Rupa, and I can never forget the insights that she provided to the board. And you continue to provide that to this audience today. Thank you. I now go to Mr. Rajeev Ranjan and request you from your very high perch to tell us how the government and all our ecosystem evolution agents are looking at sustainability as an economic imperative.
There's a presentation. Your ask is to cover a lot of ground, so I'll try to. Can you put on the presentation? Yeah, I think. Don't just. I'll just rush through it. Okay. Because we also have a time shortage, so we can't really go through and do justice to the subject. As you know, this is a very vast subject, and everybody can have something to say on this. It is something which, yeah. So I will skip this. This is obvious. What is sustainability? I will skip this. 5 P's of SDG: people, planet, prosperity, peace, partnership. Big words. Can we do some meaningful deconstruction and make it action-oriented? That is the challenge which we have. What is happening at the national level, international level? How much money? Because this is a tax conference. We need to realize where is the money, how much money is required. Climate change, slow and gradual. Many people are still skeptical whether, after we heard what US officially, the Trump position is that all this is humbug. Scientists only talk about all that because there's a vested interest. But we all know from experience, and India is one which is very vulnerable. I'll not get into details, but there are n number of, reports which say that. It is manifested at Earth's temperature increase. That is something very visible to us. Climate change, rise in sea levels, erratic weather patterns, extreme weather events. In Bombay, Mumbai, there is a huge rainfall, and which is unseasonable. What happens? What is it really? These things we need to understand and see what can be done. Now, the numbers, I'll just pick and choose a few numbers. Let's not get too much into it. Shifting to green economy could generate $26 trillion in economic gains by 2030 and create over 65 million new low-carbon jobs. So the point is that it's not that we only say these numbers. We all know that there's a huge cost involved. So investing in resilient infrastructure in developing countries could yield $4.2 trillion with every $1 invested returning $4 in benefits. Now, these statements, we really, when somebody says this, how do you really believe in this? How do you really feel that this is justified? This is where we need to actually pay some attention to it, because whether we like it or not, this is up to, we have no choice actually. Now, doubling global renewable energy capacity by 2030 could save the economy $1.2 to $4.2 trillion annually by just reducing the pollution costs. Because many times the pollution costs are indirect. You see, the number of years that we lose. I now stay in Chennai. I mean, from Chennai, I shifted to Delhi. So Delhi, I can tell you, there are reports which says that 10 to 11 years of a prime time loss in life happens because of the pollution effects. Now, as I said that these things, if you put some numbers to it, numbers can be subjective, but this is where we need to understand. So adapting to climate change in developing countries actually may cost up to $300 billion. But investing in resilience will halve the post-disaster cost. This is the main message. And I will just quickly, look at climate finance. You see, if you see the international discussions happening, we are aware of the COP, the Committee on Parties, the UNFCCC meetings. We could get in the last one, which was in COP29 in Baku in Azerbaijan in November 2024, it was designated as a finance COP. But these agreements yield, earlier, the task or we are looking at providing 100 billion annually by the developed countries to the developing countries for climate adaptation and for doing investments in renewable energy. The new target is now 3 billion. Now, this has taken 15 years. So when we question is, but the developing countries were asking minimum 1.3 trillion, and actually the requirement is 5 to 8 trillion dollars per year. So you see, where are we now? You look at it, these numbers are so big that we don't even scratch the surface. So this is a major problem. So adaptation finance, which is 21% of total public finance in 2020, while developing countries face much more big challenges. So this is the real key. The challenges are much more for a country like India. Where is the money for it? This is where we have taken steps. So private finance becomes important. That's why these kind of meetings where private, there's a lot of representation. So mobilizing public climate funds can unlock millions. 90 trillion is needed for infrastructure by 2020. So these are the kind of numbers, but a clean economy, circular economy is what is needed. So climate finance for emerging economies, there's concept of blended finance, public-private collaboration, emerging markets. Now I'm skipping because there is an issue of time. Green bonds we just heard. Dr. Rupa explained that. But in India, green bonds are less than 5% of the total bonds. So that is what we need to understand. We need to make that figure higher. If you look at the world, in the entire, if you just have some numbers, just ballpark figures, so we have more than $3 trillion US worth of bonds, of which 20% are green bonds. So you see, at the world level, it's about 20%, but we are struggling to reach 4%, 5% kind of a thing. But this itself is a big, so we are at a nascent stage, but we are, if you look at, after the government of India came up with this green bond and a system was put in 2023, we raised that $1 billion US. So in 2023, totally about 16,000 crores were raised. In 2024, 20,000 crores were raised. In 2025, up till now, about 12,000 have been raised, and another 10,000 crores are going to come in. So about 25 or 24,000 crores this year. But as I was mentioning, for the kind of requirement that we have, it's like a drop in the ocean. So much more is needed to be done. This is where all of us have to come together. I was just talking about what happens at the UN level. A lot of discussions, but is it only gas? Is it only discussion? Is it leading somewhere? This is a big issue. As I said, paucity of time, we can't get too much into it, but a lot of things have happened. Unless there is you see, we are dependent on financing from outside. So World Bank funding, all kinds of multilateral funding becomes important. So we need to mobilize and channelize. But the issue is very, very severe. India suffered a loss of more than 5.4% of the GDP, 167 billion potential labor hours lost due to extreme heat in last year itself. So imagine, just by one factor, again, as I said, we don't have to look at one report. There are a number of reports. Question is that these numbers are just by extreme heat. If India is losing 5% of its GDP because of loss of productive labor hours, imagine what is going to happen. The loss in terms of agriculture, the food supply, the productivity, which is so there are many number of things. Extreme weather events, we know how difficult it is. What happens to the vulnerable? What happens to the... So there are big issues. So depleting natural resources, limited supply of water, we are water-starved, limited mineral and fossil fuels. So there are big challenges. So what is India doing? India's strong steps. You see, despite all that, India has taken very strong steps towards combating climate change. Panchamrit, all of you know, this was announced by the Prime Minister in COP26. So there are 5 elements. I will not get into it, but we have set up a target of net zero carbon emission by 2070, which is very, very big, is a big order for a country in the development path that we have taken. And we all know that equity demands that developed countries who have gone through the cycle, exploited the resources, they have to pay back, but they are not doing it. And Trump has now said that he doesn't care. So what is going to happen is going to be even more challenging. So each country has to look for its own thing, but these 5 Panchamrit things, which says non-fossil fuel energy capacity to 500 gigawatts, again is a lot of opportunity, lot of jobs. This is where we need to look at it. 50% of its energy requirement from renewable energy by 2030. So all these things have another side to it which we should understand. So India's climate financing gap is vast. It requires tens of trillions by 2050. And this investment needs, how do we meet that? This is a very important thing we need to discuss more. So India is only, per capita carbon emission is only 1/3 of the global. But imagine, we are still one of the only, among the major countries, India is the only country which has fulfilled its target, what it had given to the UNFCCC. So this is a very big achievement. And under very difficult circumstances. This is something which is not fully appreciated many times. Mission Life, you all know, Lifestyle for Environment was declared by the Prime Minister in Glasgow in COP26 in 21. Which means that we need to nurture a global network, and each of us, the pro-planet people, P3, at an individual level, at collective level, at all levels, we should try to take a pledge, try to do what we can do. Now, some government has been doing a lot of work in many, many areas. I can go on for the whole day. I have been involved with many of them. National Mission on Sustainable Agriculture, National Adaptation Fund for Climate Change, Green India Mission, National Water Mission. We can go on, agriculture. So this itself, this is just a very, very partial listing. These are very big projects. Each have many subcomponents. They are going on for many years. They are monitored. Their whole ministries, whole thing is going on. But as I kept saying, that this is a very small part of what is totally needs to be done. Unfortunately, we don't have much time to get into a very vast subject like this, but it's good that we are at least discussing it. This is just to say that how India can benefit by 2050, 965 billion. This is part of one study by the World Resources Institute. So I'm just giving some number to indicate that there are a lot of plus sides to it if we can do the right things. Green finance, the ESG part, because we have a speaker now on this subject, so I will not elaborate this, but that is where the companies have come in, and SEBI has been pushing for it. The top 1,000 companies, listed companies, have to mandatory now follow that. That itself is a very big development. So many things are forced upon, but that is very much required, because if you don't do it, we have a major, major disaster for the whole economy and the whole society. So what are the pathways to sustainable development? Again, in various sectors, I have just listed down few things. I wish I had time. Like in agriculture, which still about 70% of the population is dependent in some way or the other. So what can we do? Organic farming, whatever so many, many things in there. Creative economy, waste management, water, energy. 10 key solutions to mitigate climate change. Again, we can discuss a lot. I have said this, Kumbh, I was in Kumbh on these days. And I mentioned this, I was thinking that Mr. Suresh Prabhu would be coming. Suresh Prabhu is, is chairman of India Foundation. India Foundation was involved in having this event in Kumbh. And basically why I wanted to mention and give you an example of this is that when the number talked is 66 crore people came. I mean, again, we may have a different view on whether 66 or what number, but the question is, can this big congregation, which is admittedly the biggest possible, how can it happen if it is not sustainable? Because it's been going for years and years and centuries. So that itself shows that it is not a new concept. Sustainability is a concept which is part of our heritage, our whole ethos, and our civilization. This is something we should not think that's a Western construct put on us. Yes, there are issues with it. So this Kumbh is a great reminder of that. Modern technology with traditional knowledge, how to fuse both of them and do it sustainably. This is a classic example. Again, if time was there, we would have maybe discussed it on specific aspects, on what is done, what is practically done. There are sub-themes for action, clean and green technology, and many things which we'll not get into. I will also just spend 30 seconds on Tamil Nadu's experience. I have been working in Tamil Nadu. That was my cadre. So Tamil Nadu has started something called the District Climate Mission, which means all this adaptation thing is done at the district level, which is, again, a very remarkable thing, first time in the country in a very detailed form. So all the 38 districts are doing mainstreaming the adaptation, which happens with large number of the departments who are involved, PWD, irrigation, all that, and they have to put together. So at least that is something concrete happening on ground. So let me stop here by simply showing you the two slides, that the speed and scale of transformation is very historic, because this is a tax conference. So I must say that tax structure has ushered in a very major change and tax compliance issues. So from that it's connected that we need to understand how does it powering a billion aspirations comes from that. And now India is in a different light, because India is the one of the contributing to the global growth engine. So the fight against climate change, India is a leader, but much more needs to be done. It has to be done through science, Jai Vigyan, research, using new technology, Jai Anusandhan, using renewable energy. India has taken the lead in ISS, the International Solar Alliance of the G20 presidency. So developed India mission, what we say, is not only economic growth, it has to be with inclusive and sustainable growth. Let me stop here. Thank you.
That was fantastic. Thank you for all the time compression you did.
No, I was conscious that we need to close.
But you know, there's an insight that comes to my mind from the Kumbh, which you talked about. You know, if we are actually to embrace the entire power of AI, then we will ultimately have a deviceless ability to communicate with each other through the cloud. And the Kumbh is exactly that. It is a congregation of 66 crore people who could actually communicate with each other. I don't know what footprint they left on each other's minds, but there was some footprint that they left. So it's a great event.
Say that, there's a book called The Ephemeral City, which was based on the 2013 Kumbh by Harvard University, which is 10 departments of Harvard University came. It's called Ephemeral City. Sustainable, which means there is no permanent footprint on the thing. You go there after 2-3 months, you'll find that, you see, can you believe that so many things happened? So this itself is the essence of it. I mean, okay, we should also be practical in the sense that when you can't make it perfect, but the fact that these things have been done. And anyway, we can go on, but it itself is a great example. But we need to really put it correctly. You see, this is what happens. We get diverted on small things without understanding the broader and bigger issue. Something which has evolved, which is growing, without a very central command, And as you said, it is the kind of energy which is not hostile, which is rooted and it evolves. And with new technology. So new technology was used very, very effectively. And this is what the beauty it is.
Beautiful. Thank you. Prakhar and Rishabh, now you have to help us even more than Rajeev ji helped us. But give us key takeaways and key 30,000 feet inputs. I have to first thank Shailendra Bhai for allowing a session like this to happen in a tax conference.
Totally agree.
But please go ahead.
So I would just like to draw, I'm sure a lot of macro-based perspective have been set up on sustainability, but working with several corporates, and I love to talk about the basic definition of sustainability. And if you see, UN has given a very beautiful definition on what do you mean by sustainability. They say that we are over-consuming, and we are over-consuming like anything. So just to give you a fact, there's something which is known as Earth Overshoot Day. I don't know how many of us knows about it. It's a date which is calculated, which says that on this date, we have already consumed the resources of what Earth would have generated in the whole year. And this date is shifting very fast upwards to let's say, so last year it was in the mid-August, in 24 it was early August, and this year it is expected to go in mid-July. So we are over-consuming already twice of what we could generate. And you can expect what can happen if we over-consume, right? So that's the definition of what do you mean by sustainability. But that is from a personal perspective. But how do you translate it to a corporate level? What do you mean by sustainability at a corporate level? We were all talking about, till now, a lot of companies were talking about how do they invest their profits in terms of CSR. So it's almost now a decade wherein we are explaining how, corporates are explaining how they are investing their profits. But now the world is changing because it has a big economic impact. Stakeholders wants to understand how that profit is generated. So leave aside how do you invest. I want to first know how do you generate this profit. What are the steps you took to generate this profit, and what footprint do you left on the stakeholder at large, not just the economy, but let's say environment, customer, supplier, employees on that matter, community on that matter. What is your risk? What is your impact on generating that penny of rupee of profit? And how are you reinvesting it back to mitigate what are you doing wrong? So that's the larger definition of sustainability from a corporate perspective, wherein the idea is to live long, and survive by reducing your footprint down to the bottom. So that's how I define the whole concept of sustainability at the very corporate level. Now also give you a perspective what it is driving. So we have seen a lot of things on macro perspective, how the government is driving, and it's a beautiful time right now. India has defined a rigorous growth plan to be achieved by 2047. We want to be a developed nation. And parallelly, we have also announced a plan of being a net zero by 2070. And right now, to be very frank, we are, and rightly pointed out by Mr. Haribhakti, that our renewable contribution is very low. And we are a heavily coal-based economy. And it's not peaked yet. We have to reach to our peaks in let's say, 5 years down the line, wherein we will buy more coal, spend more money on coal-based economy. We have already almost 10 projects in pipeline to be approved by the government. Now, how do you balance at that level? So we are looking for a faster growth, but we also want to get our goals fixed on carbon neutrality. So that's where we are right now in terms of the larger perspective. But what it is being driving at the corporate level is, right now there are 3 broader reasons why the sustainability is being driven at that level. The biggest reason is regulations. So recent times, which Ranjan sir was also mentioning, India has introduced a requirement of a ESG reporting. And right now it is mandatory for top 1,000 companies. And I don't know if you guys have referred that report. It's a very detailed report which is published by top 1,000 companies of the companies, how sustainable they are. So they are talking about their carbon footprint, they are talking about their water footprint, they are talking about their waste footprint, they are talking about their employment impacts, they are talking about their social impacts. In that report, it's almost a 40-page report with detailed information. So that is first. So regulation is driving it at the forefront. The second driver of this adoption is stakeholders. So customers are asking questions, investors are asking questions that how are you putting my money on? Where are you putting my money on? Are you putting it in the right direction? Is it sustainable where you are putting my money? Because I have a risk, because your business has a risk today. And the third is intrinsic driven, leadership driven, which is where we want to reach out. I think that is very minimal right now. So if you talk, which is the biggest factor, the regulation is still the biggest factor, but the facts which Haribhakti sir has said just a few moments back, we have a lot of economic benefits coming out of this way, but somehow corporates are not realizing it. They are still sort of trying to question that what do I get if I invest in this versus how much I will be able to save in the future. So I think that's where the larger gap lies in, and then the factors like US, which is coming very strongly on some of these factors, can impact it further. So that's my quick take on how corporates are sort of trying to take the sustainability at a larger.
Fantastic, Prakhar. That was so valuable. Thank you very much. Rishabh, your words of wisdom.
I think
Time's up. But
the screen says time's up. I think that is the reality. The time's up. We are running against the time in sustainability. And I am throughout a tax person. My gurus are here. But I stumbled upon a sustainability opportunity in Ladakh. How many of you have gone to Ladakh? So when we enter the airport, we have to buy an oxygen cylinder, isn't it? Because the 40% oxygen level is low. I worked there personally on a wasteland rejuvenation project for 5 years. And we grew 1 lakh trees in an area 20 kilometers away from Leh airport. And today that area is considered to be the greenest area, and a lot of secretarial residences are coming in that area. The area was developed by not public-private partnership. We actually tried a new model. We call it Cooperative Public-Private Partnership, CPP. And cooperative is needed because you need people. Unless until the people get involved in any of the sustainability project, it will remain a theory. It cannot be practiced. So we tried it out as a sample project. Then I got an opportunity, a personal opportunity, to make a presentation to Prime Minister office. And I'm going to tell you, constitutionally, Shailesh bhai is with us for last so many years, we are talking. There are 4 people in this country who are aligned. If they are aligned, then Bharat ke sitare align ho jayenge. PM, CM, DM, and Sarpanch. The 5th person is not required. They are required to support these 4 people. And believe me or not, our Prime Minister is very much aligned. From every COP, he is saying that 26 million hectare of wasteland India will develop. It's not a small thing. When I did the calculation and I made the presentation, I can share that presentation out in open. I have got the approval also. 26 million hectare will require 52 lakh crore. 1 acre soil rejuvenation with water, soil, and basic infrastructure require 1 lakh rupees for 3 years. Very, very basic calculation, $750 billion is required. From where the money will come? Who will fund this? We have to solve our own problem. If we have consumed more, we have to solve the problem. Not by words, but by deeds. And if we do it, you see the certificate which we are giving here today to all the dignitaries. 45 certificates is equal to 45 trees we have already planted yesterday, with a commitment that 3 years these trees are going to be maintained. After 3 years, the tree will grow on its own. And in 499 rupees, one NGO came forward and they said, sir, we have planted. Now we are giving you the photograph with a geotagged location on the certificate so that you know that you have done something for the country, for the environment. I think this is at the individual level. At the government level, the Ministry of Cooperation was set up after 2019. And every year, 1 lakh crore is allocated for a lot of projects. We need people who are project drivers. We need people who are project leaders for such a large 26 million hectare. Today, 155 million hectare of land is cultivated by 30 crore people. This 55 million hectare addition, 26 million addition is the phenomena in the world. The world is watching us. How are we going to do it? And this is the time to show the leadership, in all hands leadership. And this is what we have chosen this subject as part of TIOL Congress, because we cannot collect tax if there is no income. We cannot have income if we are not sensible towards our soil, our water, our environment. We have to make it happen. We have to teach our kids in the school, in the colleges, the way we have taught them coding. Day before yesterday, I was in a workshop by LinkedIn Global Team, and the chief economist of LinkedIn was there, and she said, Rishabh, after 6 months, 40% of the white-collar job are going to go down, zero. Not required, because when Google came, YouTube came, and our knowledge become democratized. The value of knowledge, entertainment become zero because it is accessible. Today with ChatGPT and DeepSeek and so many other things, omni-humans and all, I don't know what not will come, our intelligence is getting democratized every second. So there is no room or scope for intelligence. Then what is the new intelligence? The new intelligence is sustainability. The new intelligence is knowing your aroundness, knowing the weather change, taking from where the water is coming. I don't know in this room or even in Bombay, how many people know from where the water is coming. I think the new intelligence, the new parameter of accounting, the new parameter of recording the success of humanity has to be developed. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Rishabh. That is such a powerful message. I think there's only one word that you said I would like to double click on. Time now is for action. Everything else is theory. Let's go out and act. Thank you, every one of you, for a fantastic panel discussion. I bring this panel to a close.
And thank you, sir, for your relentless drive at which you are driving this sustainability topic. I think it's remarkable. Thank you, sir.
A big thank you to all the panelists. I request you to please stay seated as we have one more ESG expert who will be joining us for a brief address on this dais. As we're delving deeper into the conversation on sustainability, it's time to invite someone who's dedicated last few decades to shaping ESG strategies. He's Dr. Pradeep Panigari, the COO of ESG and Sustainability at Strategist Consulting. And he's worked with leading organizations like Murugaoka Group, Tata Group, and many more. And very importantly, he's a member of the ESG Advisory Committee of SEBI. I request you, sir, to please join us on the dais for a brief address.
Good afternoon. I'm delighted, that I've been invited here to speak few words on ESG and about my company, Strategist. And also, I'm very happy that Mr. Haribhakti, he is my mentor and guru. He is here sharing this session. Until few months ago, I was head of sustainability in L&T. And today I am CEO of a leading ESG and communication consulting firm called Strategist. The reason I came here is that we found a lot of opportunities in this space. So Strategist is a leading firm with a huge amount of focus on future. What we found is there's a lot of future on working with MSMEs. MSMEs contribute to 30% of GDP in India. How many MSMEs are actually working on ESG? And with my 30 years of domain experience working with big organizations, I thought this is something we can really do, and this is where we can actually really make change. And we can also help in all type of firms, CA firms, legal firms, and everywhere where there is a need of technical specialization. We have got experts who have combined, experience of 150 years. Those who have pioneered ESG in India. So you can go to the website, which is actually under development. So we will, and please be in touch with us. We can solve your end-to-end problem on any aspect, anything related to ESG, sustainability, SDGs. So that is what we are trying to create a one of the probably, one day it will become one of the leading ESG firm in India. Now, why ESG is so important, where there are sort of some backlashes, there are some, negative stories, there are positive stories, but, let me tell you very honestly, having been in this field for last more than 3 decades, that whether a particular leader is there or not, it doesn't matter. Whether, there are people like me or there or not, it doesn't matter. But ESG is going to stay. Sustainability is going to stay. Because it is, at the end of the day, it's a question of survival of the humanity. And I have attended many COP sessions. It is there, as Mr. Haribhakti says, now is the time for action. And, exactly what you have to do is just get down to the table, convert all the theories into actions, and actually you don't need anything else. You don't need big meetings, you don't need COPs, you don't need anything else. Just get down, sit down, and take the actions. So thank you, sir, and thanks everyone. Please be in touch. My CEO and founder, Mr. Yuvraj Mehta, is here. And I thank him for giving me this opportunity. And my other colleagues, are there. Silpa is there. So please go to our website, be in touch. Thank you so much. Thank you.
I request all the panelists to please come together for a group photograph. And Anuj from TIOL, if you could please present them with a small token of appreciation from our side.